Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Stop to Sell. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Melina Palmer, applied behavior economist, CEO of the Brainy Business, keynote speaker, consultant, author, and the host of the Brainy Business podcast. Thanks a lot, Melina, for being here. How
Yeah,
are
thanks
you,
for having me.
Melina?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, our conversation today is based on your book, What Your Customer Wants and Can Tell You. Backstage, you told me it's the fifth anniversary, right?
Yes, it came out 5 years ago, which it both feels like it's been here forever and like it was just yesterday. So yeah.
Well, this is a very topic for sales professionals because customers do not always know how to explain what they really want, why they hesitate, why they compare options in a certain way, or why they choose one solution over another.
Mm.
So, we are going to explore behavioral economics, how they can teach us about customer decisions, how they can help me about the sales conversations. And like you love to say, it's not about the cookie, right?
Yes.
Well, Melina, it's a really pleasure to have you on Stop to Sell. Welcome. Before we go into the book itself, could you briefly introduce yourself and share how you became interested in behavioral economics and customer decision making?
Sure. Yeah. Well, and thank you for the great intro that you gave. I appreciate that. So for me, like you said, my work is in applied behavioral economics, which is really I like to focus and think about this like human decision making, how people
Mhm.
make choices based on the options that they're presented, and the flip of that, thinking about in business how you can better present information so that customers buy and employees buy in. Because, like I said, I know we'll get into why it's not about the cookie and what that even means, but really people don't, buy based on the price of something or what the item is or whatever. It's how you present that information has more
Mhm.
impact than the price and the thing itself. And so when you understand those things, it makes it just that much easier to sell and communicate and find win-wins for everybody. As far as how I got interested and started in behavioral economics. So actually, my background is in marketing and brand
Mhm.
strategy. That's what my undergrad is in. And when I was studying for that many moons ago now, there was, one section of one chapter of one book in one class had this like little bit about the psychology of buying decisions and how people make
Mhm.
those choices. And I just was fascinated when I saw it that I just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go get a master's in this. This is so cool. And I spent the better part of 10 years calling universities that said, that's not a thing. We don't have a program for that. You can build it yourself if you want, but kind of like, well, if I knew what I needed to learn, I wouldn't have to pay you, several $100,000. So I think I won't do that. And so I went into industry and just was kind of intuitively applying some of these things. I ran a marketing department. I had worked at an advertising agency and various roles of just seeing like the stuff that people said should work didn't always work, and things that everybody else was doing didn't seem right to me.
Mhm.
And so as I started testing things and checking things out and having success, I eventually found the field of behavioral economics
Mhm.
and jumped in and got myself that master's program. And when I was in it, I knew I was reasonably early, right? Because, like I said, I had been calling schools that said they didn't have it. And on the academic side, the programs had been around for a while, but applied, like nobody was talking about how you use this stuff in business to help to sell more, to communicate
Yes.
with your teams. There was just nothing out there. And that kind of rolled into why not me? And I ended up launching the Brainy Business in July of 2018. with those first episodes. And it was just the perfect right time that people started to find it. It was really the first podcast of its kind in the world. And so, serendipity or what have you, helping to share all of this. And that turned into books. And the podcast has over 1.7 million downloads now, I think, and about 600 episodes, over 170 countries. And like I said, I've written 3 books and love to speak on stages and help people in business with this stuff. So that's the really long answer about me, I guess.
No, it's not a really longer. And what I'm going to say in this podcast, I have already written to you, and it is so simple. Brainy Business, your podcast, you were a big push to me to say, okay, Eduardo, go to this field, explore this field. I decided to go to a close neighborhood, neurosales, but I love you were a great help for me to take this decision. So, that's I know that the coronavirus or COVID was a bad thing, but the real truth is, if it's not COVID or coronavirus, probably I haven't discovered your podcast and listen all the episodes that I have listened. So thanks a lot. And that's not a big introduction. You have a great job in this field. Well,
oh, thank you.
The title of your book is What Your Customers Want and Can't Tell You. And the question is that why can't customers always tell us what they really want, Melina?
Yeah, it's because they don't know, right? Actually. And so the way that we humans make decisions are different than we would like to think. So, research shows that humans make an average of 35,000 decisions each every single day. So we are constantly in this state of decision making, and we're just making choices. If you think about that, like if you sleep 8 hours a night, which, may be a stretch for many, but that's okay. You're really making a decision every 2 seconds, right? We're just constantly in this state of choice. And the only way we can do that is because our brains are mostly running on a subconscious level. And the only way that subconscious can make all those decisions is because it's using habits and predictability and rules, like predictable rules, to make decisions. And when you like to think it's that conscious, logical brain that's doing everything, especially if you do B2B type of sales. I know it's easy to say, but these are the logical things. It's not a personal choice. And that's just not how it works, right? So what you had, the reason that behavioral economics even came around as a field is because traditional economics assumes logical people making rational choices and everything they do all the time, optimized by what someone somewhere says is optimal, right? And so humans don't actually act that way a lot of the time, right? We know what we should do, but we end up doing something else. I know I should go for a walk, but I might end up eating a bag of Cheetos while I watch Netflix, right? Like that may or may not happen every so often. And we all do that sort of thing, right? And so what you end up is with models that don't accurately predict behavior. And so over time, you had people from psychology and economics and neuroscience and all these things start working together and entering into one another's fields to try to see if there were ways to better predict what people would actually do versus what they would like to think they would do versus what they say they would do versus why they think they would do something and what people actually do. And those rules of decision making and what people actually do is where the field of behavioral economics was born. So essentially, it's the rules and concepts that the brain is using to make decisions. And when you know that these rules kind of hold over, cultural background, age demographics, gender, all these things, we humans tend to be
self-beliefs too, right?
Yeah. And so we don't know. It's not like a perfect people will always do this when that, right? That it doesn't work that way. There's a lot of art in this science, but when you know the pieces on the board, it makes it easier to at least evaluate and understand the game that's being played.
Okay. Well, like you can show to us previously, it is very important, the idea of decision making. Okay, and it is more complex than we think it was. Like, I don't know, 25 years ago. 25 years ago, it's very easy to sell. You go there and you ask the needs, and he presents the needs. Well, that takes us one of the practical areas where salespeople can have a major impact. And it is the way salespeople can present information. Sometimes the solution itself does not change, but the way it is framed can completely change how the customer understands its value. So how do you think we salespeople can present in a better way? What are the different tools that behavioral economics can help us?
Yeah, well, framing itself is one of the concepts, and as you know from having read the book, that it is one of my very favorites. And I think it's a really good place for people to start, because whether you think about it or not, you are framing the information that you're putting in front of someone. And there's a way that you can slightly tweak and reframe at any time. It's a really easy thing to test, whether it's in a verbal pitch that you're giving, whether it's in emails, the subject line of the email, the closing line of your email, in the images that you choose. I mean, there are just a bunch of different ways that you can think about how to frame the message, and that you can just start to test it even if you don't have budget or something to make a big shift.
Okay.
So to explain how this concept works, one of my favorite examples is just to imagine, that say you woke up or you're going to a restaurant for breakfast and you see that they have a yogurt parfait on the menu, and you're super excited because you love yogurt parfait. It's your favorite. For the sake of the example, it's your favorite, right? And you're delighted to see that actually they have two, which is amazing, that are there. And as you look closer, you see they're almost identical. The only difference is that one is labeled as 90% fat-free, the other as 10% fat. So the question is, which one do you want to buy?
90% free.
Right. Yeah. And having given this presentation and shown this example to thousands of people around the world, and no other people have done similar tests, of course, like, overwhelmingly, people say that that's what they want, 90% fat free. It feels so different. Like, logically, we know it's the same, but it feels completely different based on how you receive that information, how your brain interprets it. And so the thing that you could say is, like, if people aren't buying what you're selling, it might not be that the price is wrong or the product is wrong. You might be talking about it in 10% fat terms. And if you think about a way to reframe it and sell it as 90% fat free, it could go gangbusters and be something that they're, really interested in and can't wait to move forward on. So one of the things that you can look to focus to shift this, step one is, it's not about you, it's about them, right? What do they value? What are they interested in? You mentioned like understanding and asking some of those questions up front, and you can just, present that information. But not getting hung up in what you think they should care about or what logically you think should matter, because humans buy on emotion, right? And being able to understand what that person values and how to present it is going to be very different in the way that you communicate and sell there. So when it comes to framing, I actually have kind of 3 big tips that I give as some language things that you can also go in and change right off the bat. One of them is to switch from if, right? We like to say if a lot. Like, if you're interested, let me know. If you have any questions, you can find me over here. If. but that doesn't really compel people to go do anything. It
Mm,
sort of hangs out there. If you can change most of your ifs to whens, there's
okay.
an implied sale in that, right? So like when you're ready, you can find me
Okay.
over here, right? It's a very clear this next step is going to happen when you're
Yes.
there. This is where I'll be, right? So that is one quick shift. If you change those out, if to when. The other next one here is that, we humans are a herding species. And so we like to feel safe and like lots of
Mm-hmm.
other people are doing something. If you have anyone, right? So like on my podcast, when I have an author on or something, I won't say like, hey, if anyone is interested and wants this book, you should go buy it. Like anybody, hello, anyone. It feels very lonely. Whereas if you said, hey, for everyone who's so excited to do this, to buy the book, the next step is to go
Okay.
here, right? So for everyone who's ready, this is what you would do. So switching anyone's to everyone's. So people like you
Mm-hmm.
do things like this helps feel more compelling there. Last one is, if you tend to get ghosted on emails, like you're sending out
Mm-hmm.
pitches, nothing's really happening, check to see what your last sentence is. And if you end on a period instead of a question mark, that would be a problem. So ending on a question makes it so people
Okay.
feel compelled to take action and answer, even if, it's saying not right now or something, you can at least close a loop or something. So instead
Mm-hmm.
of saying, hey, if you have questions, let me know, or I can be available whenever, let me know what time works for you, period.
Okay.
I can kind of put that on a shelf and deal with it later. Whereas if you say, hey, when you're ready to chat, I look forward to a time. I happen to be have an opening at 3 p.m. on Wednesday. Does that work for you?
Okay.
And then someone might say, oh, I can't do that, but I could do 3 p.m. Thursday, right? They might keep that conversation going. We want to
Yes.
close a loop. So those are three kind of simple reframes.
In that case, yes or no question, a close
Um,
question, it will be great. And
yeah,
I
it can be yes or
understand.
no. Yeah. And open-ended is good as well, right? So,
Okay.
but it's just any sort of question we're more
Mm-hmm.
likely to want to answer or do something with.
Okay.
And that could be something to test, right? So maybe you don't want to barrage people with questions. don't don't make it feel like, oh my gosh, that is so much that you're asking me to do. Sometimes even instead of saying, hopefully that's everything, let me know if it's not, right? But to say, hey, I think I got everything here. Is there anything I'm missing? Do you see any place where I haven't answered a question you might
Okay.
have, right? Like then we're more likely to keep that conversation going. But it doesn't have to be yes, no, but
I
that can help.
understand.
Yeah.
Okay. You also talk about priming
Hmm.
and how can subtle cues influence what customers notice, feel, or choose even before a sales conversation begins.
Yeah. So if really the framing aspect is how you say something matters more than what you say,
Mm-hmm.
priming is really that something that happens just before a decision is made has a big impact on the choice that someone is going to make.
Okay.
That can be in word choice sometimes. It can also be in imagery and other experiences or the way that you present the
Mm-hmm.
information. And so being thoughtful to the experience that comes right before that decision making process is a big thing to look at. And so some research here that had, say, people that were put into a room to work on a group project with people they had never met before, and where they're in the room, um, half of the people had a backpack that was visible, the
Mm-hmm.
other half had a briefcase that was visible. And it turns out that those in the backpack room were much more cooperative than the people in the briefcase room, even though
Okay.
people said they didn't notice, they didn't see it there,
Okay.
right? But it influenced their behavior because our brains are pretty literal with the way that they make these associations. And like briefcases are for boardrooms and battling it out and every person for themselves and greedy and whatnot. So maybe I don't want to put my best ideas out there. I don't feel like you have my best interest at heart. Whereas like backpacks, we remember going to school and working on group projects and, having a good time and elementary,
Yes.
junior high, high school, what have you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so those associations can be impacting the way that someone reacts to other people around them. And so let's say you are wanting to put forward you're talking about being a friendly partner to people, but you've got, pictures of you in a suit holding a briefcase, in everything, and like crossed arms, whatever. That doesn't probably convey the type of experience that you're wanting to put together. And it's not to say that that's always wrong, but it's important
Mm-hmm.
to be thoughtful about those things. I also like to say, like, just even to think about a flower, right? Like, so a red rose around Christmas time, so like in December, red roses have a different vibe or connotation to them than they do in February, where we've got Valentine's Day, coming
Mm-hmm.
up. And so February 13th, rose looks very different than on the 15th, especially for someone who didn't get roses and was supposed to, right? And a yellow rose is different,
Yes.
than all these aspects. Like a flower is not just a flower. And in some cases, maybe it's nostalgia and reminding us of our, grandmother's perfume or something, or it can be
Mm-hmm.
these different connotations. So knowing that everything matters and potentially more than you would like to think that it does. But if you are thoughtful about what happens just
Okay.
before the decision, it can really draw people in a positive
Mm-hmm.
way that really aligns with what you're trying to have your brand do.
Okay. There is another concept that I love,
Mm,
and it is loss aversion.
yeah.
And I think it is one of the most powerful behavioral concepts. Why do customers often react more strongly to what they may lose than to what they may gain?
Yeah, I mean, this goes in our wiring as a species, just like the majority of what we're talking about here. As far as the why is, we evolved with very scarce resources and wanting to keep the things that we have just in case, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we kind of like to have all of our stuff, and the idea that we might miss out on something, that we might lose, is something that's very motivating to us to kind of keep as much around us as we can. And so what studies have shown over the years is that people are actually twice as likely to act
Mm-hmm.
to avoid a loss than they are for a potential gain, so to get something. But because we know this is one of the concepts I think is the best example of how our conscious brain gets in the way when we're in like business mode. So when you're the person looking to sell, you may say, well, I don't want stuff taken away from me, and people like to like get and have stuff, so we should just give people more things all the time. That's how we win here, right? And like, I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't like it to be taken away, so I'm not going to communicate that because I wouldn't like it. But if things never go away, there's no motivation to take any sort of action. And if you need people
That's true.
to feel compelled to do something, and you think about when you're actually buying, and there's, the counting down on a clock to say this is, only here for this amount of time, or you need to spend the rewards you've earned before they're gone in a week or whatever. We feel motivated to not lose those things, and you're gonna go
Mm-hmm.
and take whatever the action is. But if you never have that loss frame on stuff,
Yes.
people may just like let it hang out forever. And
Yes.
so being able to remember, I know I talk about in the book that it's like people forget that they're human when you go to sell stuff, right? And so there's a bit of trying to understand how you even react to things. And so really I end every episode of the Brainy Business with be thoughtful. It's the kind of not mission, right? But it's the ethos, I guess, of the Brainy Business and of myself. And
Mm-hmm.
that can relate to how we connect to other people. But it's also like knowing that so much of what we do is in these rules that the subconscious uses. And so every so often to say, like, why did I know that email was spam? Or like when that LinkedIn connection request came in and I went, "Ugh," like, and wanted to delete that right away, or the post, or like whatever it is. Like, what is it about this one that made me want to click and this one that made me say absolutely not? And what am I doing in my emails that might be like the bad one and not like the good one? And being able to kind of see those things, or even to say, like, why is that on the top shelf instead of the bottom shelf? And how might it be different if this or that, right? Just asking lots of questions and being curious can help you to break through and understand some of your own norms that you didn't even realize were there, that can help you empathize with those customers more too.
When you say, how could I know that this could be spam, and you put that face?
Yeah.
That happens with my 12th son with ads with AI. How could that possible that had AI? His brain heads with AI bad product.
Well, I mean, it has to be. There's so many things where, like, if you, but content creators now are making the video of like, I bought the thing that was obviously AI to see how bad it was, and you can like laugh along with me or whatever. So perpetuating the problem, but for sure, right? And you just don't have the same level of trust. I think that's something to, like, when you think about sales, it's a long game, right? It's about relationships. Even if you sell things that are pretty quick moving, you still want clients that are going to stick around and keep buying from you, right? Those things go on over time. And so I caution people, like, hey, use AI. I use AI. It's fine, right? We should use it. However, like, if you can't be bothered to read the whole thing that it created for you before, don't go post it on social media. Like, don't just go send it and say, well, it's probably fine because the AI says most people say this, right? For one, that's a hurting problem too, right? That if it just feels comfortable, like, well, everyone else is saying this, so I should too, but you're not going to break through the clutter that way either, right? And so there is a bit of forging your own path and not making sure you don't sound like a computer, because there's also a lot of research into whether or not people feel comfortable buying from computers versus humans, or participating and partnering with them. And so making it have that inauthentic and kind of like, I didn't take the time to, I don't, like, my time's more valuable than yours is kind of what it feels like in that. And one of the things I talk about in the book even is like in people have in their signature line that like, excuse any typos, like, sent from my phone, right? And that is a thing that I recommend against. If you can't take and sorry for anyone who has it, I know there are a lot of people that have had that over the years, and actually it was like a default recommendation for a long time. But essentially you're saying, hey, I'm too busy and important to proofread my email before I send it to you. That's your job, because you're less important or busy than me, right? That doesn't feel very good. And so even something as subtle as that could be priming the experience that someone's having with you, and you don't even realize it, right? And so if instead you can say, you know what, I'm not going to send the email until I have time to proofread it, right? And make sure it makes sense and says what I want. And then I'm going to get that out the door. Take those couple extra moments. Some things might not get through perfect, but those little things can make a difference.
I do believe that the next chapter we are going to live, and I know that I am a very optimistic, but I do believe the next chapter, it will be humanize it. Humanize your emails, humanize your communication, humanize.
Yeah.
I do believe. Before I got in this conversation with you, my wife sent me a WhatsApp saying, look, Eduardo, you have a grammatical error in this LinkedIn post. And I think, I'm not going to correct it, because people will read it and say, it's not AI.
That's, I get that. There is some of, I know sometimes if I like when I'm signing books or something and I mess up, I'll write a little like I'll end up drawing a
Okay.
little picture or something and say like, look, like real person messed this thing up. Like you got a special edition here. So yeah, I think there's a bit of embracing some of those mistakes and things too. But yeah, it's an interesting time to
Mhm.
see how this all comes into play and leverage the tools that you have to help you be more efficient and effective and doing some research and things like that, but definitely don't lose that human element when it comes to sales and relationships. And I think we're seeing people are getting kind of exhausted. I don't know about you. I don't know about the people that are listening. Like I feel like AI has just enabled all the bots to pitch me everything. Like there are
I
so
understand.
many.
Okay, but listen and uh, feel free to agree or disagree with me. But
Yeah.
when people talk about AI and talks about be efficient, okay, I agree. But when we are talking about a relationship, the point is not being efficient.
Mm,
The point is creating relationships.
right.
The point is understands your needs, understands what is your decision criteria to buy to me. The
Hmm.
point is not being efficient. I need the time to understand you. You
Right.
need the time to know me.
Hmm.
So if we talk about the process, okay, I use AI and I understand that AI could be a big help.
Hmm.
I don't agree that AI could be a good tool for relationships. And
Yeah.
when I listen people saying, I'm using AI to be my psychological, my doctor,
Mm.
that scares me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are, all sorts of ways that things can go positively or negatively in that span.
Yes.
But to the point on the relationships you're saying, I think I agree on most of that. And I think there is an opportunity, though, if you think about for people, we were talking a bit about like knowing what someone values and what's important to them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if that's not something that's really intuitive to you, say you're getting into an industry that you haven't worked in before, you have an opportunity to pitch to something that feels like it's totally foreign to you. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's in a different, because it's a different country, or maybe it's a different industry or something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to say, have a conversation with whatever AI you choose and would say, hey, like I have this opportunity to pitch to Susie. She's the head of X at this type of company. Like, looks like through LinkedIn, her background is through this and that. I met her this way. Like, my past clients are in this other industry, like what might translate over to what she's concerned about, what might be different, how does that tie in with my relationships? Like you could ask it some questions when it's a territory you're not familiar with yet to help
Mm-hmm.
know what case study you might want to share, or a question you might want to ask, or something you should research to show that you're not totally inept in the field that they're in, right? So helping to identify some of those gaps before you go into a conversation. Um, and so I think there are some options using it there
Mm-hmm.
to help establish a relationship or keep something going. But likely not. But if it's writing every email and helping to make it so you don't ever have to comment or connect with anyone, fully agree. Bad strategy. Don't do
I
that.
do agree. I do agree.
Yeah.
Well, you often use the idea that it's not about the cookie. Well,
Yeah.
in sales, we how can we avoid selling the cookie too quickly and instead understand the real job, need, or motivation behind the customer's behavior?
Yeah. So the framework of it not being about the cookie, I will demonstrate it through a story. One of my favorite ways to do this, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
in this way, imagine you and I are walking down the street, having a lovely conversation, catching up. We haven't talked in a while, and as we're walking and talking, all of a sudden there is this amazing scent that comes down the street toward us. It is sweet and there's this like hint of chocolate and maybe a little bit of salt. And we realize there's chocolate chip cookies baking nearby. And while we're still having a good conversation, we're a bit distracted. Now it's like, we're cartoon characters with our noses pulling us down the street toward that scent. And then we get there and we realize there's a line in front of the bakery. And then we find ourselves in the line and someone comes up and says, they offer us a free sample and they say today only, buy 3, get 1 free. Before we know it, we leave there each eating a cookie and with a bag that has an undisclosed amount in it for later, right? That's our experience as we went there, right? So that was scenario 1. If we rewind now for scenario 2, same street, same conversation, some random guy comes up and, shoves a coupon in our face and says, hey, today only, I've been selling cookies. And if you buy 4, you only pay for 3 of them. And I've got samples. Like, ugh, like that guy, get out of here. Like, I hate that guy. And we never want to buy from him. And now our conversation is about bad sales experiences and just like one-upping each other. And then we're walking and we see this bakery and there's a line there and we're like pitying the people that would even stand there to go to that bakery. And by the time we smell the cookies, that is just the last straw to go write a review about how much we don't like them and would never buy from them because of their bad sales tactics, right? So we can see here that in scenario 1, we're almost definitely buying. Scenario 2, we're almost definitely not. They could have been exactly the same cookies in both scenarios, right? So it's not about the cookie. And also it's not about the price because those first cookies could have been $3-4 each. Maybe they're 50 cents each in the first scenario. It just wasn't about that. And so all the things that happen before you get to the price matter more than the price itself. That's the psychology of that. And there are, 6 kind of key concepts within that cookie framework. We've talked about several of them already here in the framing, priming, loss aversion. There's also scarcity, which is very closely related in there, which people are pretty familiar with. And then we also have reciprocity being a big piece in that when someone gives to us, we feel compelled to give something back or to buy. So that free sample, that we got along the way, people want to give back to us in that process. And now I'm thinking,
hurting.
I already say thank you. I was like, I know I did 5. Like, where did I skip? And then the hurting and social proof, which I alluded to. I mentioned a little bit as well.
Well, that's the importance to read a lot of times. What your customers want and can tell you.
Yes, it is in there and easy for you. And each of those chapter or concepts has a chapter in the book. So I know you had been kind and mentioned to me that you go back to the book a lot and really that was my intention and how I wrote it, to make it be like a choose your own adventure type of book. So each concept has a dedicated chapter. So if you're saying, I do want to learn more about social proof and hurting or reciprocity, you can go read the chapter about it and how to apply it and how it works. And then at the end, it says, then there's applying it chapters that kind of combine things in part 3. And so you can see where it's going to show up in the examples later. If you read an example, it can say, hey, this included loss aversion. It was chapter 8 if you want to go back and check it out or whatever.
It's true.
So hopefully that it is a guide in that way of helping people to actually use this in their work, because that's the goal, right? I want people to be able to communicate better with other people, to understand humans, make it easier for people to buy from you and for you to optimize. So they're buying the thing that's best for the company, that's best for them, that's best for you. Like the win-wins of the world is really nice.
Well, if there is one idea you'd like every salesperson or business leader to remember from this book, what your customer wants and can tell you, what would it be, Melina?
Well, I would say, the main thing that I think is important is to be thoughtful right? As I said in ending all the episodes, and the book has a section on that too. And being a more curious questioner, kind of working to get out of your own way and understand things from that other person's perspective in a way that they can't necessarily tell you, right? So the book is going to help you to understand human behavior better, hopefully where you resonate with some of those, see some of those examples in yourself, but just getting an opportunity to test something, right? So when we were talking here today, I threw out a bunch of examples, whether it's like, hey, I'm going to change my ifs to whens, right? Or I'm going to throw in, example of social proof somewhere and say, most people like you do this, or I'm going to end my pitch on a question, right? There's something you can go and try. Go for a loss aversion frame, instead of the giving frame. Pick one thing, test it for a week, see what happens. Right?
Okay. And go to Amazon website and buy it, please.
Yes. You can also go to thebrainybusiness.com/books, and you can check out all three of my books are there. You should be able to get a chapter or a free chapter of one if you want to check that out and see for yourself and see if it is a fit for you. Reciprocity there in action, that you can see how you feel about it. This book also has more than 100-page workbook I made that goes with it, with lots of ways to test and apply and start using these things. That's free and available. Like I said, it's really my goal for you to use these things. So, and anyone who wants to connect with me can find me on LinkedIn as Melina Palmer. And I do, I work with companies too. Would love to hear from you if you're interested. Go to thebrainybusiness.com/contact for that.
Okay, Melina, thank you so much for this conversation. I love it. I think one of the most important messages from today is that the customers are not always able to explain what they really want, not because they are hiding something, but because human decision making is influenced by context, emotion, memory, attention, uncertainty, social signs, and many other behavior factors. For sales professionals, this is a powerful reminder. Selling better is not about pushing harder, it's about understanding better. Thanks a lot. And as you remind us, understanding that sometimes it's not about the cookie. Thank you again, Melina, for joining Stop to Sell. And to everyone, I highly recommend exploring Melina's work, her book, and the Brainy Business podcast. If this episode was useful for you, share it with someone in sales. And please listen Stop to Sell podcast and Brain Business podcast. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.